Hey guys, Nate here, Hill and Ponton's video guy. I'm back again with a whole new video for you, and this time it's on Agent Orange. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down what exactly Agent Orange is. I'm then going to talk about all the symptoms related to Agent Orange. And then finally, I'm going to talk about, with the help of Attorney Ursula McCabe, how exactly you get service connected for Agent Orange. So if you want to just skip ahead, I've already got the timestamps for each of those located in the description below, or you can sit here and listen to my wonderful dulcet tones as I talk through as much information as possible. Okay, now that you've gotten through that part, what is Agent Orange? Agent Orange was a mixture of different herbicides used by the US military during the Vietnam War. The two active ingredients in Agent Orange were dichlorooxyphenoacetic. I know I said it wrong, but this is the correct spelling of it. I just don't really know how to pronounce it. The second one is this one, trichlorophenoxyacetic acid, which I think I did better pronouncing this one than this one. But these two different herbicides were mixed together to create Agent Orange, the thing that we know that has caused a plethora of health problems for Vietnam veterans and their descendants.
Quick little note here, Agent Orange also contained trace amounts of 2,3,7,8 tetrachlorobenzo P-dioxin, or TCDD. It's a toxic contaminant that is known as dioxin.
Now, when it comes to the different symptoms or things that are caused by Agent Orange, it's a very, very long list of them. And here they are right here and here. I've put them over top the screen as text, and I'm going to stand here as I narrate them at a later date for each and every single one of the symptoms that can be caused by Agent Orange.
I lied. I'm not going to read every single one of those because you don't want to hear it, and I don't want to do it. There's a lot of them. So instead, you can click the link in the description below to head to an article that'll list out all the different symptoms and conditions associated with Agent Orange exposure. Or you can click the pop-up that's over top the video as a card in the top right. Thank you. Please enjoy watching.
That being said, there's a lot of different diseases that are caused by Agent Orange. Now, when it comes to these different diseases, only a select few of them are known as presumptive conditions. Presumptive conditions are conditions that if you are diagnosed and you show that you were in service at a certain time in a certain place, you are automatically given service connection. Now, in order for this to work, you have to have a combination of those two different things for it to show up. Now, when it comes to the use of Agent Orange, there were a couple of different ways that they were dispersing Agent Orange and different ways that you may have come close to this contamination. The first is aerial spraying. That's basically where they take it in aerosol form and spray it over top of vegetation in order for it to be cleared out completely. I've heard stories of veterans who were around all of this aerosol form of Agent Orange in which they were spraying it throughout the air, and no one was wearing any protective gear at all. Granted, at the time, no one knew how dangerous and terrible it would be for people to ingest, but there were no protections in place to keep you safe. The other way is through ground application. A lot of military operations utilized it to put it on the ground in order to destroy as much vegetation as possible. Another way is contaminated equipment, where if you had anything that you wore that may have come in contact with the ground that was contaminated, or the aerosol spray that was sprayed throughout the air, you then have equipment that is contaminated that you're going to continue to ingest in many different ways. Another way is through contaminated water, because all of that stuff has to flow somewhere, and it would flow into the drinking water while people were serving in Vietnam. And on top of that, there are certain groups that had a higher risk of exposure compared to other groups, such as those serving in Vietnam, the Korean Demilitarized Zone, Laos, Cambodia, Guam, American Samoa, Johnson Atoll, and all Thailand bases, as well as C-123 aircraft personnel and naval operations. Now, instead of me being the one to talk you through how proving service connection works, I'm going to go ahead and cut over to Attorney Ursula McCabe, who's going to talk to you more about how you can prove service connection and get service connected for Agent Orange.
To just briefly touch on veterans that were exposed to Agent Orange, while this isn't the whole focus of the video, but just to give a little bit of background, typically when a veteran served in a place that has presumptive Agent Orange exposure during certain time frames, there are several ways to get service connected for disabilities. We've got direct service connection, secondary service connection, as well as presumptive service connection. The difference between the presumptive service connection is that if you served in a designated area during a designated time and you are diagnosed with a condition, VA is going to presume that that condition is linked to your Agent Orange exposure. There's no additional information that's needed in order to prove that that condition started in service. However, if you have a condition that is not on the presumptive list, let's say, for example, you have a type of cancer that is not presumptive, you can still prove direct service connection if you can prove that that cancer was due to exposure to dioxin and Agent Orange while in military service. So just because a condition is not presumptive does not mean that you are not able to get direct service connection for that condition. The last way is through secondary service connection, and we see this a lot, especially now with claims where hypertension could lead to a whole lot of cardiovascular diseases, as well as issues with kidneys and other types of health benefits. And so you can also get secondary service connection for conditions that have been caused by or made worse by an already service-connected condition. So those are the basics for how a veteran is going to get service connected for medical conditions associated with Agent Orange. There's a very big list of conditions that VA has presumptively service connected. You can read about that below because the list is pretty extensive. And with the introduction of the PACT Act, there's a couple new conditions that have also been added. So if you have one of these conditions and you served in a designated area during a designated time period, you could be presumptively service connected for those conditions. So take a look below at the list of conditions automatically are presumed to be related to your Agent Orange exposure.
Not only is it the people who were serving in Vietnam and were in direct contact to Agent Orange are the ones who are eligible for these benefits, but also the descendants of those who were in direct contact with Agent Orange also have a high risk of a certain few things that they could be diagnosed with. And instead of doing it in a list form, I figured I'd have attorney Rachel Cheek and attorney Shelly Mark talk to you exactly what those different service-connected things that you can get for being a descendant of someone who had Agent Orange.
So this is applicable to children of veterans who were exposed to Agent Orange, came back home, later started their families, and children were being born to Agent Orange exposed veterans with some birth defects, with just different conditions that once you kind of add up how many children of veterans have these conditions versus how many children in the regular population are born with these conditions, there was a link found. The primary one is spina bifida. Spina bifida happens when the neural tube that covers the spine does not close all the way during a baby's development. And not only does it not close, but in the development, parts of the spinal cord and the nerves actually develop outside of the baby's spine because the spine doesn't close, sort of sac forms, and the neurons and nerves and spinal cord forms within that sac rather than right down the spine. As you can imagine, that causes a lot of problems down the line that can result in serious disability. Your spinal column doesn't work. You're not have control over your bladder or your bowels or your legs.
Right.
Exactly. So that's the most serious form of it. There's slightly more minor forms of spina bifida. There's a form in which the neural tube doesn't close, and a sac does form, but the spinal cord and the nerves form normally. So you might have, there's a slight deformity you would say on the baby's back, but usually it's associated with more minor disabilities. It's not as serious as when the nerves are outside, obviously.
Right.
There's also a third form, which is not even really, it doesn't really affect day-to-day life. It's called spina bifida occulta, which just means hidden spina bifida. Mm-hmm. And that is when the neural tube doesn't close, but it's not apparent. There's no marks, there's no sac formed. There's no indication that anything is, there's any kind of defect. It's usually just discovered in adulthood or late childhood. It doesn't actually affect It usually doesn't result in disabilities. So that form of spina bifida, although that does occur with children of Agent Orange exposed veterans, that one's not something that the VA really like concerns themselves with. However, the other two forms of spina bifida that do cause disabilities, that's something that VA has acknowledged happens related to Agent Orange. The spina bifida is the only condition that VA acknowledges is second generation Agent Orange from children of male veterans who were exposed to Agent Orange. So even though I've heard a lot of times, there may be some other birth defects that are kind of associated with Agent Orange, even for the male parent, that's the only one that VA covers is spina bifida. And so those children are eligible for healthcare benefits and also vocational training. So like job training, help job placement, that kind of thing. It's just a little something when you think about it.
Right.
These children that are born with severe disabilities that VA is even acknowledging, yeah, it was Agent
Yeah.
Orange. So they do. I want to say I think they should do more, but
Right.
getting healthcare is a pretty good deal in our country.
That's
So
true.
you
I
know.
mean, no, I agree with you. That's definitely the kind of the least that you could expect in a situation like that. But we're happy that they're at least acknowledging it and providing the health care.
Now, ultimately, we hope that you don't have any of these problems or issues when it comes to being in contact with Agent Orange. But if you do and you're still trying to figure out how to get service connected, I've linked a playlist to this that has all of our Agent Orange videos so you can dive deeper into what I just talked about here. I'm only glossing over the surface and not getting into the nitty gritty of all the different back and forth that you can have when it comes to service connecting for Agent Orange. So you can go ahead and click this right here to watch the rest of the playlist that is filled with Agent Orange videos, or in the description, I have a link to an article that will explain Agent Orange if you're someone who would rather read it. That being said, as always, you can join the Vets Advantage to learn more about this and many other conditions that affect veterans on a regular basis. You can get a free consultation right now. You can subscribe, or you can have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, thank you for your service.